Hey everyone. Okay, so before talking about this week's chapter, there is a bit of awkwardness to talk about with last week's chapter, which is simply this. So apparently only a couple days after I had uploaded last week's review, I had learned that supposedly there were pages missing from that chapter. And it was only a couple days after I uploaded the review that those pages finally got released. And and as shown on as I just showed on screen, one of those pages what was Freyja delivering a critical blow to Homura. And that is important for the context of, and I mention this because it is important for the context of this week's review of this week's chapter as well, but to also put it into perspective, like it for me personally, like when it comes to stuff like this, I try to give these translators like the benefit of the doubt that maybe they're being overworked, maybe they can't always that sometimes they need a little bit extra time in order to upload everything, all the contents of the chapter they're translating. But in this case, it's like I can't help but feel this was one of those things where, but in this particular case, I'm like, you finally finish updating the entire chapter only a couple days after. Like, it's yeah, that does it's not a good look. Let's just say that, okay? It's just not a good look, and I'm hoping that this isn't a this isn't a recurrence because I'm not gonna lie, actually, as well. That kind of also gets to a problem I do have with this chapter right out of the gate, which is to say, just like with last week's chapter, this chapter feels a little rushed, or like there might be some pieces missing because it just kind of because out of nowhere, I don't know if I don't know if Valkyrie's looking on from this fight from afar, but how does Valkyrie know what's going on? Is she even aware what's going on? Like it doesn't make the chapter doesn't make that part very clear, honestly, in that regard. But okay, just getting all that out of the way first. But having gotten that all the way, let's talk about the chapter itself, which and it basically amounts to Homura effectively defeating Freyja. And honestly, I'm of two minds about this because on one hand, I do think Mashima does do things to justify Homura defeating Freyja, like the whole thing of getting more from her past and past training with Valkyrie and unleashing the pretty much the flame technique and whatnot. That I think is pretty good stuff, but at the same time, it's like I think there really should have been more to this fight. Like again, I can't help but feel like I do get the context of what Mosh was trying to go for here, of like Homura having surpassed her master and whatnot, her surpassed Valkyrie. But at the same time, it's like it again. Getting to what I was talking about before. This is Lady Freya, one of the one of the Eurasian States Galactica in this universe. And the Eurasian States Galactica in this universe haven't really been as impressive as the ones from the universe we know. So because of that, it's like I feel in order to make Freya really matter, you really did need to go the route of having both Valkyrie and Homura in this fight. You needed to have both of them tag team her. You couldn't. It needed to be both Valkyrie and Homura tag team fighting her. Like it couldn't just be it again. It just couldn't just be Homura point blank. I think in order to make this fight mean something, in my opinion, you did need Valkyrie there as well. You did need her fighting alongside Homura in order to defeat Freya. Like I, it's one of those things where again I get the idea, but I don't think the execution is entirely there. It's yeah and but to be fair, I can kind of almost see the vision. I can see how this chapter could work, but at the same time, it feels just a little bit lacking, just from the fact that Valkyrie plays such a small to minuscule part in this fight. Like it feels like she needed to be there fighting along again. She needed to be there fighting alongside Homura. That's at least in my opinion how this should have gone down. I don't know if it's gonna be everyone's opinion, but it's definitely mine. But with that said, one thing I do with that said, one little detail I do kind of like with this chapter as well is how is her talk is when Homura talks to talks to Freyja about the three principles of being a warrior. And in some ways a lot of the, like, I don't know about the heart one necessarily, but when it comes to, but there is a lot about this chapter that was like when it came, but there, I do like how this is kind of that thing of embodying just real principles about being a warrior, about being like, again, the heart technique is a little bit flimsy, I think, but things like technique, body, all that. These are things that do in fact need to be honed in order to become a true, like, skilled and developed warrior. So I do like how in the midst we do have this sort of ideological battle, kind of an ideological battle of like what it is that makes a true warrior. And again, Homura does kind of embody the principles of those ideals more than Valkyrie does. Like, in a lot of ways, you could say like Valkyrie had kind of lost those or sorry, not Valkyrie. I mean Freyja. You could honestly say that Freyja kind of almost lost those principles just from the fact of her having just from her having become this ultimate warrior android, like someone who cannot be beat. You can almost see she kind of not only she lost those principles from basically losing her way in a sense. And so again, I do kind of like that idea a bit. Um, but yeah, guys. Aside from that, there's not really much more to say about this chapter. Again, this is a chapter I can kind of, again, I can now with that said, I guess, sorry, actually, with that said, I guess I should talk about the final moments of the chapter where I guess you see her kind of, I don't where you see Homer basically say, "I feel cold." Now, this gets to something else I was thinking about, which is to say that one of them has to at least die, and I don't know if this is like a little gag on Mashima's part, or just the fact that she's naked or something, that Homer is naked during this fight or something. I don't know, but I'm could have I'm hoping maybe she overexerted herself, that she's at least in a critical state by the end of this chapter. I don't know, hoping, but like I wanted someone to. That's the other thing about this chapter. I wanted someone to die, but I don't think that's gonna happen anymore. I could be misreading it, but that does feel like more Majima doing a gag than that Homer is gonna die, which is again kind of another disappointing part. But I don't know. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Analyst Crunchyroll, the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime signing off. Later, everyone.